Good morning. This is December 2nd, 2021. This is episode number 4. It's been a little different today. If you look for the X-Leap content, it will be coming out shortly. There's a little bit of an issue with Open Source Digital Forensics Conference happening yesterday and several CTFs going on right now. If you haven't checked them out, you've got the Sans Holiday Hack coming up. You also have the Meta CTF, which is the 3rd through the 5th. And then Try Hack Me has their Advent Cyber Challenges, which releasing one every day. This could be slightly different. What I'm going to do today is, if you have not seen Leonard French or at Lawful Masses, you should go check out his channel. I'm going to review one of his older videos from 2016 due to some interesting things going on in it. You'll see an older Leonard French. He's improved much better, but I will link up here for his other channel, and I will link below to it and the video that I'm currently gonna do a reaction / review of. Also, one other thing, disclaimer: this is not legal advice, nor is there anything legal within for me to say, so do not expect any legal advice. I am not a lawyer and don't claim to be, but we'll take a look at what they're talking about and some of the physics behind that video. And one last thing, if you do want to support me and the show, you can go to the link below and buy me a coffee. I love coffee. Or maybe send me coffee too. I don't know. However, so first thing we're going to do is we are going to here's the video. I'm going to start playing it and I'll pause and talk about the video as we go through it.
Hey everyone, today I bring you the story of Brian White, a Pennsylvania resident who found himself the subject of a BitTorrent based file sharing lawsuit and ended up with a $241,000 judgment. Upon receiving notice.
Now, one thing to remember is back, especially when this happened, everyone's getting lawsuits for BitTorrent. This is just one of the ones I know that's actually succeeded in it. But due to some issues with it, which we'll get into, which is one of the reasons why this succeeded. Not to say that the guy was either in the right or the wrong. It looked like he particularly did pirate videos for from Mallory Media.
Notice of the lawsuit, his reaction was to file a motion to quash the subpoena to identify him as the ISP subscriber. If he won this motion, the plaintiff would never know who he was. Unfortunately, the judge in the case, Michael Bailson of the Eastern District of Pennsylvania, denied the motion and forced Mr. White and 4 others into litigation. This was one of the first BitTorrent lawsuits to reach the litigation stage. It was certainly the first that Judge Bailson had seen.
Mm-hmm.
The defendant's motion to dismiss the lawsuit was denied by the judge. He ordered discovery, which came in the form of a request for the defendant's hard drives.
I'm going to stop here. So at this point, be very careful on what you do when you're subpoenaed your own equipment. As foreshadowing, there's a hard drive involved here.
Once on notice of a legal claim, parties have a duty to preserve evidence and turn it over when ordered by the court or dictated by legal procedure. Now,
and that's actually very, very true, obviously. And if you actually look up Rule 37 and 37E specifically of civil procedure, everyone has to fail to preserve electronic stored information. It should be preserved in anticipation or conduct of litigation is lost because party failed to provide reasonable steps to preserve. This is the core of a lot of evidence. One of the things you got to remember is that if you think you're going to get into a court case, you have to preserve evidence. If you receive a letter, you have to preserve evidence. Now, most of the forensics litigations, usually when people think they have electronic data, they will send a letter of preservation to those parties to make sure hey, you need to make sure you keep this kind of data. because the destruction of that data is a problem as well. In this case, is relies upon this evidence being manipulated in a way that probably shouldn't have happened. But to get back to that, let's continue the video.
Different people have different reactions to things. Mr. White's reaction to receiving a subpoena for his hard drive was to completely erase the drive. Place it in...
Alright, so don't do that. Don't erase your drive and then expect to not have this happen to you.
Into an encrypting USB case, reinstall Windows, name the drive Squeaky, and turn that over, including the USB case, to the plaintiff's investigator.
Now I have done it myself, and I've had other people do it about encrypting a drive, especially for like destruction or to erase it. So one of the things you can do is, instead of writing zeros and doing all the craziness, some people create a 256 key, character key, encrypt their hard drive, and throw away the key. So now it's a random bit of data, but in this case, that's not what he was doing. He's actually trying to hide that he had potentially infringing information on this hard drive. But you can encrypt the hard drive, throw away the key, and then in a way of sanitizing the hard drive.
The best part is that it almost worked. The first thing any forensic investigator is going to do is exactly what was done in this case. Mm-hmm. The examiner removed the drive from the USB case and made an exact copy, then began scanning the drive. Because the drive was out of its case, the data was still encrypted, and the examiner was stumped. It could have ended there, but before the parties could fight over the contents of the drive, the examiner died. Completely separately, completely unexpectedly, he died, leaving his business partner to pick up where he left off.
That's a really bad, unfortunate set of events here, with the original investigator dying. But yeah, so whenever you get a hard drive or any type of device, even if it's phones are a little different. If you have a phone, obviously if it's encrypted, they do chip off. But I don't have a hard drive in front of me. Surprisingly enough. Oh yeah, I do. So for some hard drives, you have hard drives like this, which are self-contained. But in other cases, you get the extra enclosures. I don't know what model. I really haven't seen like actual enclosure by itself encrypt. Like I've seen software to do it, but even if you put the hard drive in a different enclosure, enclosures are just that. So I'm not sure which enclosure he used. But yeah, remove it from the enclosure to make sure that there's no issues with the connection, because you never know if someone put a failsafe soldered into the enclosure, and then when you go to hook it to your computer, you could end up with stuff on your investigation machine. Another thing, which if I remember I'll link to, is called Bad USB. I'll try to link to the Hacked podcast episode on that, which is a very interesting vulnerability.
The second examiner began to experience the same issues, and, a month or so away from trial, several emergency motions were made. Mr. White's attorney was claiming that the plaintiff's investigator was incompetent. Meanwhile, the investigator was crying foul play. Judge Bailson ordered an independent investigation, and that's where Mr. White's plan unraveled. The new investigator figured out the USB enclosure trick very quickly and identified the recent installation of Windows.
What confused me when I first saw this is when the drive is encrypted, it doesn't, or appeared to be random. They never actually attempted to put it back in the enclosure and try it that way in some secure manner. They just kind of wanted more time to continue. I don't understand why that certain encryption methods can be bypassed by using the original devices. Cell phones is a good example of this. If you have an iPhone, hooking it to the original computer could potentially unlock the iPhone, or you can get more data off of it. Be careful with losing information, of course, or data changing on the phone. But you could potentially do that. Keys for encryption for iPhones are stored on the computer that they're attached to. So I'm not sure why the original investigators didn't try that when they realized it was encrypted. And why it matters for the encryption side, I'm going to swap over here, is that you can have, I'm going to show a few things here real quick on the encryption part. And you should quickly recognize that when you have an encrypted hard drive, you should know right off the bat. I'm going to make a directory here. Oops. Yeah, if I type here. Alright, so if I do so this is going to so as I say 1K file, I'm gonna get to it in a second, but that's basically just a empty 1K file, and I'm also going to do this. Take random out. So type in here. Alright, so that also creates a 1K file. Alright, so I have two 1K files. So if I look at these, they're 1K and they're empty, right? So usually you'll see something like this for a drive that is brand new, or potentially written with zeros, which would take a huge amount of time. However, a random drive would look something like this. This is not something you normally would see. You'd have more data, but this is showing complete randomization if you look at just the first part of the file itself. So, and the other thing you could do, and it may not work on the first file because it's empty, do bin walk, right? And it gives me nothing, right? It's empty. The second file, apparently it's going to give me, earlier when I tried this, it actually gave me the entropy. Oh, entropy. Hold on. Alright, so the graph doesn't show anything, but if you look right here, it shows a 0.97. This one may not work. Oh, this just shows 0. Alright, we'll cut that. So this shows a 0.97, this shows 0, 0, showing there's no entropy in the file. Now, the closer you get to 1, the more randomness the file is. So if I was to do, is this, sure, let's do, whoops, still config file. Alright, and you see the lines are right here. Actually shows pretty amount of randomization. So when you get about 7 or 8, you really do see more randomization, and you realize it's encrypted, or you should realize it. So it's either 1, it's encrypted data, or 2, it really is truly random. To know which, you would have to test it. Sometimes if it's fully random, it's hard to tell what type of data you have. Like if you're using very encrypted containers, you could have that issue. So this is how to tell almost immediately when you look at a drive when it doesn't boot, doesn't have any data on it. Look at, scan a drive, scan a drive using, check the entropy of that drive. Look at it, quickly at a hex editor like XXD or anything else will quickly show whether it's encrypted or not. Let's go back and see what happens next.
Windows. Microsoft was subpoenaed as to the date of Windows reactivation, which turned out to be 3 days after Mr. White received a subpoena for the drive.
Now, one thing to note here is subpoena Microsoft is actually a real good verification. You also check on the computer for the install date, which can be changed. So I guess they verified the date by talking to Microsoft, because when you activate Windows, it does reach back. and that was their verification was, hey, this was installed 3 days ago. People don't do that. People don't install the Windows just randomly for no reason. I think there was some other cases of people like saying their hard drive failed, and that's why they had to reinstall Windows. But that's not always the case. Hardware, I mean, it's possible, but again, you don't need to reinstall Windows while you're at the beginning of it, or in the middle of litigation, in case this happens.
On the date of trial, Mr. White appeared before the judge along with his computer. The plaintiff's lawyer, Keith Lipscomb, had prepared his trial presentation with a theme of rubber ducks and bath time to represent the squeaky clean nature.
That is like an awesome thing. That's just a great presentation.
Of the drive. After both parties' testimony, including the presentation of the investigators, Mr. White settled his case. The judge allowed it, and even bifurcated or separated the finding of liability from the finding of damages so that settlement could be had. The judge did rule that statutory damages for one BitTorrent infringement in that case was worth $2,250, or 3 times the minimum statutory damages of $750. But Judge Bailson also found that Mr. White was liable for more than a standard amount due to his misconduct. The judge multiplied his damages by 10 for a total of $22,500 per title. Mr. White had been accused of downloading only 5 titles, making his damages $112,500.
Now the amount in here, you go up and even back when this was done in 2012, you go out and buy a CD of $12, but you copy it, and people are getting freaking as you say, the $750 is the minimum amount per song. For $12 CD, of course that doesn't match, but they were trying to really curb the BitTorrents and all that time at that time. But also remember that what else was there out there? I mean, you're either gonna buy a CD or do that. YouTube wasn't a thing. Spotify wasn't a thing. There was not a lot of these on-shrine media. There was a lot of file sharing and other types of software, but there wasn't a way to legally stream or get music other than through CDs. And if you wanted stuff on an MP3 player, well, you downloaded it.
Then the judge found Mr. White liable for all of the costs of the investigation, as well as the plaintiff's attorney's fees, bringing the total to just shy of $241,000. Pretty amazing result, huh?
So, it's crazy that the guy even did that. So, to recap, if you're going to reinstall Windows, don't do it before litigation, and don't attempt to hide stuff through those means. When you're doing these things and you potentially have incriminating evidence, you can't just get rid of it. You can't say, "Hey, I don't have that evidence," because stuff like this, people just, people have a certain way of doing things, and they'll continue to do those things, on and on and on. They don't change their habits just, every day, and so in this case, he changed the habit by reinstalling Windows suspiciously before the litigation was supposed to start, when he received, hey, you're supposed to keep that data. So it's a very interesting case. I will link to the case below, not to the case, but to the YouTube video for Leonard French and his YouTube channel. If you get a chance, go support him. He does a live Twitch stream every weekend. I think it's on Saturday maybe. And you can watch his stream on, and where he goes over other cases, not necessarily this case, not necessarily copyright. He's a copyright attorney, not necessarily copyright either. And subscribe. You can support the link on the screen, and I will have more stuff posted for X-Leap and other things in the future. And I will see you all later.